Welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Today I'm going to show you how to make fermented pickles. Well, here I am in the kitchen. I've got my cucumbers harvested today. And you want to try to harvest your cucumbers on the same day that you're going to make your ferment. And so I've got all my fermentation stuff out over here, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay, I want you to know before this video that I'm not going to provide you with a recipe. I'm just going to show you how easy fermentation actually is. I will inform you how to make a 2.5% brine for your fermentation process. That is very important. That's the most important part. But in terms of how much of the pickling spice and how many bay leaves and how much garlic and how much onions I'm going to throw in there, I'm just doing it by eye. And that's how I am. I know some people like a recipe. Some people are engineering minded and they need that. If that's you, then you need to look up a recipe on Google or on allrecipes.com and find out the measurements that you might need. As for me, I just want to show you how easy it is to actually do a ferment and, get a jar of pickles going like this. That's a lot of spice in there. A lot of people aren't going to like that much, but I like it. So just be warned up front that that's how I'm going to present my fermentation video. Cleanliness is always at the top of your priority list. So keep your hands washed frequently. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to get a pot of water boiling so that I can sterilize the lids that I'm going to use. And I've taken my jars and I've run them through the dishwasher on the sterilizing setting. So we should be good. We're going to start with making our brine. A brine is a salt, a saline solution, and it's the salt in the brine that keeps bad bacteria from developing in the pickling solution and allows the lactobacillus bacteria to live and to thrive and to do the work of fermenting. So you don't want to use chlorinated water when you're pickling. So I'm going to take this Berkey filter and fill 4 cups of water. And I'm going to start with 4 cups, and I'll show you how to make a 2% or a 2.5% brine. Google tells me that 4 cups of water weighs 946 grams, and that should be a constant because water's water. Okay, so 2 cups of water is 1,892 grams. We're going to multiply that by 0.025 to give us 47.3 grams of salt, and that will get us to a 2.5% brine solution. We're going to hit the tare button to zero it out. Now all that the scale is going to register is our salt. And I'm using this pink Himalayan sea salt. 46. You don't have to be this precise. Anywhere between a 2 and 3% brine solution is perfectly fine. So, about your salt, you want to use a kosher salt, a sea salt, or anything that doesn't have iodine in it. And we do this by weight because this salt is much coarser than some fine salts, and therefore there's air in between the particles. And if you just go by volume, you might get a little bit different ratio of brine. So I like to take this coarse salt and do it by weight. Okay, our water is boiling over here, so I'm going to take my lids and I'm just going to drop them in to sterilize them. And I'm using several kinds of lids today. You don't have to put the rings in actually. And I'll show you the difference between them. And also my pickling weights, I want them to be sterile as well. So I'm going to drop those in and make sure everything gets a little bit of a boil. We've got our clarified water. We've got our salt by weight. And I'm going to set this on the stove and get it warmed up so that it'll help that dissolve. Okay, check this out. I have this big 1-gallon glass crock. And you can ferment in a glass crock just as well as you can a jar. The lid sits on top and you don't need any kind of special air vents because the gases produced by fermentation can off-gas because there's not a seal here. All you want to do is just keep dust and phlegm and grunge from falling into your liquid there. So I'm going to use this one for these big pickles. First we need some spices. I'm using these pickling spices. This is a mixture that I've used in the past, and I'm doing everything by eye. I like the flavor that this imparts, so I'm going to put quite a bit of it in there. Don't ask me for measurements. You just kind of get a feel for this. There's a couple of good peppers in there. There's another trick. To help keep your pickles crisp, you need tannins. And tannins come from certain leaves like grape leaves, like bay leaves, like oak leaves. And so I'm going to put a few bay leaves in here. There are some bay leaves in the pickling spice, but I just want to make sure, so I'm going to put a few of them in there. That's going to be good. We're going to start by slicing off the ends of the cucumber, the blossom end especially. In pickling and ferments, the blossom end contains enzymes that can cause your pickle to go soft. And so we'll just slice these into spears. Those are big. I think I'm going to keep some of them big, just like that. Remember, keep your hands and your workspace clean. You don't want to get your ferment contaminated in any way. Fermenting's not rocket science. Been doing it for thousands of years. And you can do it too, but there are some rules. I think these big, fat, chunky ones are going to be good. One of my favorite things in a good pickle batch is garlic. So take some garlic cloves, and you want to crush them to release the allicins in the garlic, which are that aroma, that essential smell that makes garlic so good. So I'm going to peel up several cloves here. Now, what makes the garlic so wonderful in a brine like this is I make use of not just the pickles themselves, but the brine. I use the brine as an electrolyte to drink after working out in the heat in the yard, and you need to get some cramp relief from loss of moisture in your body. And drinking a little of this pickle brine, oh, it's so good. It's not like that vinegary stuff you get at the store. So I'm just going to give these a little bit of a chop. And those are ready to go in. Right in there. I'm going to take some dried green onion from the garden and sprinkle some of that in as well. That looks about right. And now for the dill. I have this dried dill. Normally I'd use fresh, but not growing enough dill right now. And I like a lot of it to impart that dill flavor. That ought to do. Ideally, I'd like them all to stand up. Maybe we'll have to cut up another one. I want them packed in there pretty tight. Again, clean hands means successful fermentation. Got one down on the bottom there. Let's try one of these Early Fortune and see how they differ. Right, these have a little bit of a gap in the middle from inconsistent watering right there. That's okay though. Let's put some of these in. Alright, well there we go. For my next jar, I'm going to cut discs, little chips out of these. So in goes some pickling spice. Okay. Smells good. Alright, let's get some cucumbers in there. Again, we're going to lose the blossom end and the stem end, and I'm going to cut these discs pretty thick. Alright, so we need to get these in there and pack them down. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I have this tool here. It's specifically made for fermenting. It's a packing tool. I forgot what they call it. But I might be tempted to stick it down in there and start pounding, but I need to wash it first. Now we have gaps down in here because, well, they're not laying well. And you can crush these down and press it down. You want to get them down where you can cover the whole jar with brine and leave about a half inch or an inch headspace to allow for the gases to collect up at the top and vent off. But let's crush these down. That's good enough. We could get a little more in there, but I don't think I want to do that. All right, so let's get our jar packed. Bay leaves. There we go. Yeah, we're going to spice this one up. These are cayenne peppers that I grew in the garden last year, and I'm going to put a couple of them in with the spears, just right on top, and maybe one of these guys too. Okay, now we're going to take our brine. It's nice and cool now, and you can see in this brine, maybe you can see it there, that pink, that is just the minerals left behind from my pink Himalayan salt. And you don't really even have to get the salt completely dissolved in there. It's going to continue to dissolve as it does its work in here. So I'm going to use this scooper because it pours well. We're just going to fill the jar. And then I'm going to take one of these glass weights and just drop it in on top to help it hold everything underneath the solution. That guy's a little bit proud there, so we'll move him around. You want everything to be under the brine as much as possible. Of course, you're going to get some seeds and some spice floating up near the top. But that's okay. Now, you want to put some kind of a lid on here that allows venting, because what happens is when the fermentation starts, gases, carbon dioxide, is put off. And if you don't vent your lids, you could have a disaster on your hands. It could actually pop. These lids are specifically for pickling, and they have this little rubber gasket here. It keeps stuff out, but also can vent. So we're going to try this one. I have another type of lid we're going to use. This is a little lid. You can find them on Amazon. Let's see, what are they called? Premium presents. I don't know. Anyway, they've got this little nipple here with a slit in it. You can just put that in your standard mason jar ring, and you can put that on there and it will vent out the top. So we're going to use one of those. There's another kind you could use. It's one of these mason jar lids that has a water lock on it. So you would fill this up to the line with water, and there's a little cap on top of this tube that floats in that water, and it allows the bubbles to vent off. And yeah, I don't like these anymore. They're too finicky. I like these. Well, we might have enough after all. On a big broad jar like this crock, where you can't get anything in there, like a glass weight like this to hold the pickles down, you could use a saucer, but I can't find one that'll actually pass through. So I'm going to take just a quart bag, a little baggie here, and make sure that it's watertight. That one looks okay. And I'm going to fill it with water. Now I'm going to fill it with brine just in case it happens to burst open on accident. I'm going to fill it with brine, and we're going to lay that on top, and this will be our weight. Doesn't have to be super full. Let's seal that up now. Now once again, cleanliness, so let's wash this off real quick. I'm just going to give it a rinse. I'm going to dry it so I don't put that chlorine in there. And then we're just going to lay this on top. Let me show you. We're just going to lay this right on top and let it spread out. And that will hold the pickles beneath the brine. Alright, so this one's ready to go. Here's what we have. Pickles. We're going to take these pickles now and put them in a dark spot, a dark place. I've got a closet under my stairs where I'm going to put them. I have them on this tray because you don't want any overflow getting, messing everything up. So they're on a tray here just in case. I have rarely had need of the tray, but I want it there if I do need it. We'll check on these every other day or so and just make sure everything's going along smoothly, everything's venting properly. And then about 7 days, you start trying them, see if they're where you want them, if they have that fizz that you like. If not, just let them go a little bit longer. Some people go up to 30 days with them. When they're at the point you like them, and that's where you want to stop the fermentation. Take off the venting lids and put on a regular lid. I like the plastic mason jar lids, and you can store them in the fridge for 6 months. I've even stored them up to a year. That coldness in there will slow down the fermentation and stop it, but you still, every month or so, if you haven't really got into your pickles, you want to pop that lid and burp it just in case, because there's still going to be a little bit of fermentation going on. These keep really long. Don't waste the brine that you've made. It's super if you get cramps from working out in the yard, losing too much moisture. It's great stuff. So yeah, we'll check on these later in a question and answer. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen today on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please share it if you did. And if you find our videos useful, please subscribe. We invite you to become part of our gardening community in our comment section. We've got a real lively community down there, and we'd like you to belong with us. So like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time. Happy gardening and happy pickling. Bye-bye.